Thanks for clicking on the video. Like, subscribe, and share if you find this useful or interesting. Okay, so this is what we got up to last time. We snapped our object to the layout and we reconfigured the sections so that they follow the layout, and we set some dimension. We set the last few remaining dimensions. So what else do we need to do? Well, we will need to replace the straight lines here on the spans with curves, and we will want to puff up the curves around the section because they're almost completely flat right now. But what else? What can we do before we do that? If you remember, I said that these preview blends are all screwed up, and they even caused some crashes when made in FreeCAD crash when made into a solid. How are these supposed to work? Well, the important thing is that the three sides should be fairly equal. It should make kind of an equilateral triangle. So this is way too stretched out. We have two parameters to control the size of these triangles. The amount of cutback in this direction, right, which we have already reduced, and the amount of cutback in this direction. And here, it's pretty small. We can trim back a lot more. We can blend a lot more of this surface, and it makes sense for the nose. We want to absorb most of this flat face into the blend. But let me do a little cheat here and show you what the final model looks like, even though it has a much more complex blending strategy here, which largely eliminates the part with the defect. If you include this little piece here, it's still a fairly equal-sided triangle. If you just look at the overall size from here to here, here to here, here to here, it's still fairly even. And so is this one. So we can, while we're working with these preview blends right here, the full triangle pieces, we can create this proportion. How do we do that? Well, it's this driving point right here. Actually, let me turn off the control sketches, turn off the layouts. I'm going to leave these final surfaces in view, but I'm also going to show the full curves so we can see clearly which ones we're editing. So in this case, this guy right here, right now, is at 0.75. So that means if this is 0 and this is 1, it's at 0.75. We can put it a lot closer to the center. So that means reducing this number, let's say 0.6. Okay, that brought it in. And this guy right here, so pick the point, is at 0.25. The equivalent of 0.6 starting from here is 0.4. So that really, both of these points are 0.4 away from the corners. Okay, so that's pretty good. What about on the up and down? We should also even that out. So let's take this guy, it's at 0.25. Let's just put it at 0.4. We might even be able to go much closer to the center, but 0.4 from the corner is good. So this one, 0.75, this goes to 0.6. Okay, and it's still way too large in this direction. So let's take this point. See here, this is 0.05. So that's a very small value already, but what matters is the physical geometrical size of this gap right here. So if 0.05 was too big, let's try 0.03. Okay. So now this is a lot closer to an even-sided preview blend. Let's do something similar. And by the way, so this here, what we just did, makes this surface mostly straight in this area. But we're not supposed to get the curve on this area by making the blend big. We will get the curve on this area by making these straight lines into actual curves. So we don't need to worry about that right now. We just want this model to more or less behave. Now that we've set the overall size of this object, now is a good time to set the size of the blends so that they're just about even. And so right here, what does that leave me with? It leaves all these other points. We've already said on the other side we can't mess with them. That leaves us just this guy. And in this case, we can increase that. We were at 0.95. Let's try reducing that to 0.9. Okay. I think that's about right. This is about an equilateral triangle here. This is about an equilateral triangle at the tip. So we have done about what we can do with the size of the blends, and now we can use these preview blends. And I'm still working on really low quality, by the way. So right here, these guys. Okay, I don't need to look at these point-on curves anymore. But let me back off for a second and look at this again. I don't know if you noticed yesterday, but at some point I was in my layout adjusting the overall XY, and I accidentally reduced this all the way down to 60, and then I put it back at 600. But when I reduced it to 60, it says it shrank to 60, but it doesn't look much smaller. That's because we've actually just only adjusted the bottom. And the top size was independent. So I'm going to Control Z to undo. Okay. And the reason it's doing that is because in my layouts, see, I'm going to turn off the curve so I see the surfaces and I see the actual layouts. In my layout for the center, I defined the size of the top, the deck, independently of the size of the bottom. I just said, oh, it's going to be 225. I think it would actually be better to define the position of this point by sizing the rail. That way, when we adjust the size of the bottom, the rail would follow along and the deck would follow along. I think that makes a lot more sense. Let's see, now here's something that I do that works sometimes, but I don't think it's guaranteed to work here, is that I can use the lock dimension between 2 points. It doesn't have to be the origin. If I do it didn't work this time, but I know I can do it. So I'm going to window select this point, window select this point as a second point, constrain lock, and it worked. And here's a really important thing. Why did I select? What is it doing? It just created them again. I didn't ask it to do that. Oh, weird. Really weird. See, it just keeps on creating these extra dimensions. I don't know why. I was just dragging and it created these extra dimensions. Okay, I hope that doesn't start happening too often, because what I actually wanted to talk about, see, okay, now it's behaving correctly. I chose this point first on purpose by choosing this point first and then this point and applying the constraint lock, which gives me these two linear dimensions, which allow negative dimensions, is that now this negative value will always be relative to this point first. So even if I change the size of the layout from this point here to this point here, it won't flip and start drawing this dimension in the opposite direction. It will always go inward from this point. And that's really useful because I'm driving from my layout to the bottom line of this sketch. And then after that, once I've established where this point is, I'm saying the top of the rail is always inward from this point. So always negative. And then the height is always positive. So this is really useful. Let me show you how that works. I'm going to go minus 25. So I've created a very vertical rail. And I'm going to make this board thicker. See here, it was at 50. I'm going to say 75. It's probably oversized, but it's actually good when you're designing to oversize things, make them a caricature. Okay, so I've created this, and my theory which I'm proposing to you, is that this sketch, by using these two dimensions created by constraint lock, from this point first to this point first, will create a good update order, which will allow me to adjust the layout while still maintaining the correct orientation here. So let's test that out. I'm going to close. Something is not updating correctly. Very strange. Oh, maybe one of my control sketches. Yeah, one of my control sketches did something weird. See, here's a case where I got all flipped out. It's okay. I'll just go in there and fix it. See, once we have the overall shape in place, obviously we don't want to keep this this value of 2 millimeters, but for now it's still helpful. Okay, so how do I fix this? It's doing the thing where it's not letting me pull this in, even though theoretically it could. Well, I'm just going to delete the parallel constraint. It is now going to become unlocked. See, it's still actually traveling parallel, right? So there was no mathematical reason it couldn't do it. It's just that the way the sketcher does the preview when you drag things live has to create additional constraints internally. And sometimes those additional constraints it creates internally, just to be able to handle what you're doing on the screen, lock the sketch, even though there's no valid reason for the sketch to be locked based on the constraints you have. See, I've put in my parallel constraint, but it's not trying to do what it was before, and now I have freedom. So thank you, FreeCAD, for giving us a cool sketch system, even though it's not perfect all the time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't really want to write my own sketch system right now. Okay, so I've brought this back in. Let's close it. It all seems to be behaving properly, except I'm seeing a little pinch right here. Oh, look, this one did a flip. Let's check out this sketch over here. It's all busted. This is a case where I'm going to show you by editing this guy to 10. See, it did the crisscross. It did the crisscross and it sucks. Okay, I'll show you how to fix it because you can fix it. It did the crisscross, so it's typical that it's better to delete this parallel, but I still have the three lines equal. So it's not easily going to let me untangle things. And on top of that, it's creating these. Ugh. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab the equal constraint in the middle, and I'm going to delete it. And now that I've done that, it lets me untangle it. And now I've untangled this face here, and it's the crisscross that was giving me this ghost line in the middle. So yeah, going from the blob to snapping on the layout has a couple pain points. But it's still easier than rebuilding the entire topology, so, you know. Okay, set this guy parallel to this guy. Tuck them in. Reset equal. Reset the dimension of 2. Okay, you know what? Actually, right now, I think it's time to go ahead and give these guys some actual curve. So I'm going to do it for this one. Here, I'm just going to say 10. Okay, just a little bit of curve, but hopefully this will now make it a little bit stronger for the types of changes we're going to do now. Let's do the other side as well. 10. Okay, we're puffing out this curve. Let's go ahead and actually do the bottom and the top as well. So on the bottom right here, I think surfboard is actually fairly flat across the bottom. I'm not going to go look at the guide again. You can do that and put some better values in here. I'm just going to do it by eye. The idea is I think I want a little bit of curve on the bottom and a lot of curve on top. I don't know if that's true, if that's real or not. I'm going to go to 20 on this guy. Later I'll come back and try to give it some better values. So 20 on the bottom. And oh look, this guy was flipped on the bottom. Just delete the dimension, do a section view, drag it back up, pick the point, pick the line, type D right here. I'm going to go to 30. I want to put a nice big curve on top of my surfboard for, I don't know if that's good or not, but that's what I'm doing. It's annoying to fix this sketch, but it's not the end of the world. Yeah, I'm just working with what FreeCAD gives me for this aspect of the workflow. Okay. So now I have these things, and if you remember in my layout, I did this change, and I said, hey, I think this is going to allow me to update the XY layout width, and I think these are going to travel better because now there's an absolute relationship from this point here to this point here. So let's see if that's actually true. Here I go to my XY layout. I'm going to put myself in a side view so that I can see the changes that are happening. And I'm going to edit this guy. So I'm going to reduce this a long ways in, and I want to see if this edge travels correctly without flipping outward. I'm going to go from 500 to 400. Yep, that worked. You see what I mean? Now this edge here stays, the upper edge of the rail stays inside the lower edge of the rail when I update the overall layout. But when I increase this dimension, this little sketch here might still flip to the inside. Let's try that out. I'm going to put it back at 600. Yep, sure enough, both of these sketches have flipped inside. But at least my layout is updating correctly. So now, there's two ways to handle this flip right now. You can either go to the sketch and flip the dimension, or you can oversize to, what did I do here? Oversize to 700, okay. And then I can reduce it again, 650. Nope, that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to cause the flip. Back, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go up to 800. And now I'm going to go back down to 650. Okay, and that flipped both of my curves back. Okay, I know this really sucks. I'm just showing you how to deal with it and what actually works if you need to work with FreeCAD to be able to use Silk to get a model that you can have today. Okay, so I'm happy with this larger width of 65. While I'm still in this view, I'm going to turn off my surface, the primary surfaces. Take a quick look at the final surfaces. Like, yeah, this is already a little bit better, right? I've made it wider. It's already starting to look like the real thing. I think we're ready to put some curves on here. But I'm going to cut the video right here because I think that the shorter the video is, the better. And this is a good transition point before we start doing the 3D curves onto here. So I'm going to close. And this is where we're leaving things. And we have made some progress compared to our last model. All right, catch you next time.